Secondly, as children of God, we not only stand in perfection, we must strive for perfection. Jesus set a very high standard, didn't he? He told us that it's not enough to love one's neighbor. He said you must, if you're a follower of me, love who? Who must you love? Your enemies. Love your enemies. That is a righteousness that exceeds the righteousness of scribes and Pharisees, and is nothing less than God's own perfection. You know, it's a very hard standard. In some ways, it's almost an impossible standard. But we are to strive daily with Christ's help, to strive to be like Him, to strive to do what He did, to love those that are lovable, to love the ugly, to love those that are different from us, to love our enemies. This fact is that in the context that Jesus said this in Matthew 5 and 48, be perfect just as our Father in heaven is perfect. It was within that context to love our enemies. Even though you may not be perfect yet, friends, if you are a child of God, you want to strive to be perfect like Him. Be much as like Jesus as you can. But what is your motivation? What is your motivation to be like Jesus? Go on and read verses 2 and 3 of 1 John 3. It says this, my dear friends, we are already God's children, though what we will has not yet been seen. But we do know that when Christ returns, we will be what? Like Him, for we shall see Him as He is. You see, this hope makes us want to be holy, want to be like Jesus. One of the marks that you are a child of God is that you are looking for, you're longing for, and living for the day when He returns. There's one simple test to determine whether or not you really believe in the coming of Jesus. You know what that test is? Whether you truly believe that Jesus is going to return. How many believe that Jesus will do what He said He's going to return? Yeah, okay. You know what the test is? If you do, you'll want to live in such a way that when He comes, He will find you being for Him what you want to be, doing for Him what you want to do, and living for Him in a way that you want to live. Isn't that true? 2 Corinthians 7:1, it says this, since we have these promises, dear friends, let us purify ourselves from everything that contaminates the body and the spirit, perfecting holiness out of reverence for God. If you are truly a child of God, you'll want to live a life in such a way that you won't disappoint or bring disappointment to the one who loves you, the one who gave Himself for you. There's a connection between how you live and how you look. The more you live like Jesus, the more you're going to look like Jesus. We'll be more loving. We're going to be more gracious. We're going to be more forgiving. Have you ever noticed how couples who have been married a long time begin to look like each other? Sometimes they do. It's funny how it is. You're all wonderful. Oh, baby. That's funny too. They will absolutely swear that they will never be like their parents. Right? In so many ways, they are exactly like their parents. They just can't help themselves. When you live with someone, and you live for someone, you kind of become like that person. You ought to ask yourself the question, when Jesus comes to this earth, if I'm still here, what will he find me doing? What will he find in my life? Jesus asked that question in Luke's Gospel 18, verse 8. When the Son of Man comes, will he find on this earth anyone with faith? Good question. What was Jesus saying? When he comes back, will he find any people who have enough faith in him to live for him? When Jesus comes, I don't want him to find me with a grudge in my heart. You? I don't want to, when Jesus comes back, to find me with porn on my computer. When Jesus comes back, I don't want him to find bitterness in my spirit. Do you? Or when he comes, I don't want him to find his tithe in my wallet. Suppose you were told that Queen Elizabeth was coming to your house to visit next month. They couldn't tell you which day she would come, but that you should be ready. At any moment, she might arrive. You know what we'd do? You'd keep your house clean and sparkling. Every day, you'd be putting things away, tidying up, dusting, and keeping it clean, because, boy, you didn't want to be caught off guard and be embarrassed. And maybe you're not the thing for Queen, but whatever it is, somebody's going to come, a guest, a visitor, a special person. You want to have things right. You look out that every day and you put it right. Well, isn't the same friends with Jesus? We don't know when he's coming, but let's make sure we are all clean and tidy and we're all ready for his return. In our spirits. A couple was arguing over the name to give their firstborn child. They finally asked the pastor to come and intercede. And the pastor said, "What's the problem?" And the wife spoke up. "He wants to name the boy after his dad, and I want to name the boy after my dad." The pastor said, "What's the name of your dad?" "Joseph." He looks at the man and he says, "Well, what's the name of your dad?" "Joseph." The pastor was a little bit stunned and says, "What's the big problem here?" The wife spoke up again and said, "The father's a thief. He spent most of his life in jail. He's a conniver and womanizer. And my dad, was a righteous man. So how can I know that my son is named after my dad and not after her?" The pastor thought for a moment and very wisely and great discernment, call the boy Joseph. Then see if he turns out to be a thief or a man of faith. And then you'll know which father's named after.